It's Mrs. Martin here, and I've got a book talk for you. Excited to talk about some great books in our library. The first one I'm sharing today comes from the graphic novel section. It is The Phantom Twin by Lisa Brown. I really loved this story. It is about Isabel and Jane. It's not a true story, but it really kind of felt like one. They are the extraordinary Peabody sisters. That's how they're known in their circus world. And they are conjoined twins, part of the same body, in a traveling carnival freak show. And they've obviously been part of the same body their entire lives until a surgeon decides that he's going to try this experimental surgery to try and separate them, and fails. When he fails, Jane dies, and Isabel is left on her own, not only having lost her sister, but an arm and a leg. However, in this story, she also gains the ghost of her sister alongside her throughout her life. Her dead twin is with her, and she's haunted and alone for the first time, and Isabel has to try to figure out if she can live and build a life that is her own. I really enjoyed this story. I enjoyed it for the just the uniqueness of it, learning a little bit about carnival life and what it was to be a part of one of these shows. There's a little bit of history thrown in by Lisa Brown at the back of the book, telling you a little bit about how these shows used to be put together years ago. The Phantom Twin by Lisa Brown. It's a very quick read with great illustrations and just a really compelling story. Speaking of compelling stories, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I think that looking at this cover and the title, it leads people to believe it's going to be a scary story. And in a way, I suppose it does have some frightening elements. In fact, I do want to just give a trigger warning here at the beginning that, this could be something, if you have dealt with the grief around a loved one and their illness, and perhaps an illness leading to a death, this may not be the book for you. That being said, this was made into a movie back in 2016, if it sounds familiar. It is in our fantasy section, and it's wonderfully written. I do want to show a book trailer first, and then tell you a little bit more about the story. The main character, Connor, has the same dream every night ever since his mother first fell ill, and ever since she started some treatments that don't seem to be working. But tonight, when the story begins, is different, because tonight when he wakes, there is a visitor at his window. This is a book that is really best just read without knowing too much more than that. So I'd encourage you to pick this one up by Patrick Ness in fantasy. Far from the Tree by Robin Benway, realistic fiction. This one I may have shared with a 7th grade class last year, but if not, I would really encourage you to read it. It's a story about 3 different people's lives and how those lives come to intersect with one another. We start the story with Grace, who is the middle child. although she doesn't know that she's the middle child for most of the beginning to this book. She has been an only child, adopted at birth, and has only been a middle child all along until she discovers that she is a middle child because she has a younger sister named Maya who's pretty loudmouthed and has lots to say, real snarky, and also Joaquin, an older brother who she gets to know as well. And he's been part of a foster care system for a long time, whereas Maya was also adopted. The three of them get to know each other as Grace decides she's going to look for her biological family because she becomes pregnant herself, gives her own baby up for adoption, and decides she wants to know, where exactly did I come from biologically? And when she meets Maya and Joaquin, the three of them get to know each other as, biological siblings and decide they're going to look for their biological mom. There's so much more to this book than that, but that's what I'll tell you, and I can just about promise you're going to love these characters. Far from the Tree by Robin Benway. Bad Taste in Boys by Carrie Harris is just purely fun, perfect for these fall months when people are looking for something a little scary, but also mostly just really out there. It's in fantasy, and Kate is absolutely horrified to find out that the football coach at her high school has given the team steroids, to boost up their muscles and make them better players, something they aren't supposed to do anyway. Well, in this case, it's even worse than that because the steroids have had an unexpected effect, which is turning all these players into mindless, flesh-eating zombies. Oh, man. Kate discovers, no one is safe, including her, and she decides she's got to be the one to find the antidote before the whole school eats one another, and it's up to her. So if you love a zombie story that isn't quite so, end of the world, this would be a fun one to take a look at. Oh, Ruta Zapetti's. If you've already read some of her books but haven't picked up Salt to the Sea, try this one out. It's in historical fiction. Most people already know about the tragedy of the Titanic and maybe the Lusitania. Those are both real, well-documented disasters. This one, though, is much less well-known. I didn't know anything about this, I'll be honest, until taking a look at this story. This is about the sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff in 1945. It was a ship that was overcrowded. It was only supposed to hold about 1,800 people, and they crammed it with more than 10,000 passengers. As a result, they had 9,000 different people losing their lives, which included 5,000 children. This story is fictional. She, as the writer, imagines 4 different fictional characters, but pulls in history in such a great way. So you're going to learn historically accurate facts through these different characters and how these characters' lives come together in such a beautifully written way. If you have enjoyed reading anything historical, and especially about something maybe that you don't know much about, try out this book, Salt to the Sea. A couple others to share with you, The Agony House by Sherry Priest. I love that this cover looks almost comic book style or graphic novel style, which is such a good tie-in to this book because the main character discovers in the new house where her family lives, I shouldn't say new house actually, it's an abandoned house that they've decided they're going to turn into a bed and breakfast. She discovers that there is a comic book left behind in the attic, which was the lost final project of a famous artist who disappeared in the 1950s, I believe. Her family left New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, destroyed a good part of the city. They've now come back. They came to this really rundown house. They're trying to fix it up. And of course, the house isn't in great shape, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this house too. Things that can't be explained. Floors collapsing, deadly objects raining down, knives and stuff like that from the ceilings. She's also hearing creepy voices. Like, this house is sinister. It seems to have kind of an evil presence. And she wonders, is it possible that this comic book left behind by the author who just mysteriously disappeared has something to do with this house being, I don't know, kind of covered with this presence. The Agony House. It's a mystery, and it's a really interesting read by Sherry Priest. I'd encourage you to pick this one up. Last but not least, oh shoot, I forgot to put my book trailer on here, and it's so good. Darn it. Well, I'm gonna have to just tell you about this book instead. Dear Martin and Dear Justice by Nick Stone. We've got both of them in the library. Dear Martin is the first book, and then the sequel, Dear Justice, we also have. So if you've already read Dear Martin, this is a great read, especially for those of you that read The Hate You Give and would like kind of a similar type read. This is about a kid named Justice who is riding home with his friend, a girl who's not quite his girlfriend. They're kind of interested in each other. She is very light-skinned, and he's black, and she's drunk. She's had too much to drink. He's driving her home to keep her safe, and a white cop misunderstands what's going on between them and pulls him over, puts Justice, our main character, in handcuffs, and it's a terrible situation. There's no way around it. Justice is trying later to make sense of what all went on, and rather than just only staying angry about it, he decides to deal with those feelings by writing letters, one-sided letters, to the late Martin Luther King Jr. And a lot of this book is him writing these letters to try to process what's going on and how he can deal with this racial injustice that not only he has felt, but that he sees for people of color. It's such an incredible read. It reads fast. It's such a realistic story. I could not put this book down. And Dear Justice brings you into the life and perspective of another character from this story. Both books are in realistic fiction. They're by Nick Stone, who's an incredible writer. And again, if you have read The Hate You Give or even saw that movie a few years back, I can't recommend this one enough. I hope something I shared today is a book or an author that you might want to take a look at. This is only a collection. I don't know how many I shared today, 7 or 8, but it's meant to just add to your book list. I know we might not have all of these on the shelves whenever you come down to check out, so please don't get discouraged if these books are checked out. Put them on your list, plan to check them out later or put some books on hold. But as always, you can look on the catalog using your iPad. You can stop down and ask for recommendations, check in with friends, find out what they're reading. And I just really appreciate your attention and the fact that you're using our library. So thanks so much for your attention today, and happy reading.